so enriching. And I see some names I recognize here, friends and colleagues. Let me share the screen with you. Well, before I share the screen, let me share you this incident that instigated this issue with me. That in 2008, I worked in one of the Arabian Gulf countries, and it happened that I arrived there in July when the heat is scorching. It was like 45 degrees, and there was massive excavation going on in the project. We were working in a mega project, and my assistant got me the CPM schedule, and I was looking at the excavation and looking at the duration. I said, who did this schedule? And my assistant said, oh, this consultant so-and-so. I said, can we meet with him? Yes, we can. So we arranged a meeting. He was a young fellow from an Eastern European country. So I sat down with him. I said, you created the schedule, right? He said, yes. So you calculated the durations of these activities? Yes. I said, based on what? He said, based on production rates. I said, what production rate? Where did you get it from? And I found out, to make the long story short, he got those from a reference that he brought with him from Europe. And he did not adjust the duration, for heaven's sake. And I said, do you think you will get, under these extreme conditions, the same production rates as you have in your reference book? He looked at me and kind of shook his head, and I said, did you adjust them? He had no answer. And I said, you know what? We will be lucky to get half the production rate that you mentioned in your reference. You need to understand the circumstances. So first of all, let me define three things. You all know that. So forgive my repetition. It's just to put everyone on the same page. What is an activity? It's a basic unit of work. Some people call it task. It's okay. I think in Microsoft Project, they call it task. That's okay. But it's a time and resource consuming action. And the event, it's not time consuming. The event has zero duration. So in the statusing, it's either done or not done. And important events, we call them milestones, can be start milestones or finish milestones. And then we have the lag, which consumes time but doesn't consume resources, doesn't have budget. And I prepared this, funny looking table. This is a comparison, and I'm not going to go through each one of these and how, I remember when I taught at, I still teach at college, but not on a full-time basis, but I'm an adjunct faculty at University of South Florida. Some students would draw the activity in the precedence diagrams or the node diagram as a circle. I said, no. It cannot be a circle. Why? Because it has a start side and a finish side. Anyway, so this is the table. I'll leave the whole presentation for you. I'll be happy to share it with you in PDF format. All right. So when we create a schedule, we go through these 10 steps. I'll go very quickly, one by one, break down the project into activities. I like to follow the CSI master format, but you don't have to, which anyway. And then we determine activities durations. We define the logical relationships among those activities, the interdependencies. And then we create the network and perform the CPM calculations, the forward pass, the backward pass. We identify, of course, the critical path. We calculate the floats for every activity. And then as an option, you don't have to do it, but it's highly recommended to do it. We load the schedule with cost or resources. I can tell you, if you're doing the work yourself, I would load it with resources. How many laborers, carpenters, iron men, the equipment, the materials. If you have subcontractor to do it, I would just cost load it, and then review, finalize. It has to go through a couple of cycles of critiquing and fine tuning, and massaging, all that until it's produced in its final form. And all of these 6 steps before the start. And then we implement the schedule. We take it from paper. It looks nice as decoration in the on the trailer wall, but it shouldn't be taken seriously, guys. And then we monitor and update the schedule during the execution, implement change orders. How many of you have seen a construction project from A to Z with no change orders? I haven't. Anyway, so those during execution, when you're done, you do the closeout, both final physical completion and fiscal closeout, and then you archive that project. Okay, yeah, we're talking today about number 2, determine activities duration, which has an impact on many of the items below. So who determines the durations? I've seen schedulers say, I do. And I said, no, you don't. You don't as a scheduler. You take the input from somebody else and put that input in the computer, in the schedule. However, discussion about this suggested duration should go on. And this is what I did in many situations when I prepared the schedule. I worked on schedules for buildings as well as stormwater projects, public works projects, roads, bridges, and so on. We sat down with the contractor's project manager and we try to make sure that the durations are realistic and they agree on. You cannot force them. Oh, you can do this in 4 days. And they said, no, we can't. They have to buy in. All right. In the end, the general contractor's project manager must take a careful look at the schedule and approve it, perhaps with some adjustments. Sometimes he doesn't like this and so on. And that's why I said it takes a couple of cycles and fine tuning until it's approved and accepted by everyone. The owner's responsibility. Now, do owners have to demand a CPM schedule? No, they don't. But it's highly recommended that they do so. And if they do so, it's a good idea, but it comes with a caveat that this is a liability and responsibility on the owner when you say it's reviewed and approved, because doing so puts a liability in case of a dispute later on and you go to arbitration or even to the court and Mr. Owner, the judge or the arbitrator says, you have approved this schedule. Well, Your Honor, I didn't mean to, I just signed. No, everything you sign puts liability on your lap. So it does mean that relieves the general contractor from the liability. And I've said it many, many times. Take the schedule, Mr. Contractor, take the schedule seriously, because nothing wrong may happen for 4 or 5 months, and all of a sudden something hits, a claim dispute, a change order, and all of a sudden there is a dispute and the reference is the schedule. You cannot say, I didn't mean this. What you mean is what we see on the schedule. All of you have seen American movies, and when they arrest somebody in America, they say everything you say may and will be used against you. And we say the same thing. Any document that you submit may and will be used against you in case of a dispute. How are those durations determined, calculated, or estimated? Sometimes we say estimated, calculated, and sometimes I say guesstimated. Calculations could be based on average past performance or expected production work rate. You know what your crew can do. They can be based on equipment production rates. If you're doing tunneling, for example, trenching, excavation, concrete pumping, the manual, the manufacturer's manual will tell you it can do such and such. Estimate based on expert opinion. estimation based on comparing to numbers in a reference such as RS means, spans. Of course, in all of these cases with assumptions and adjustments done. The source of production rates, the best source for you, Mr. Contractor, is your own records, all right? And then when you compare it to another item, you have to make adjustments because it may not match exactly. If it matches in the item may not match in the weather, in the type of labor, in, you know, could be different. We'll go through these factors now. Sometimes you ask a crew leader or subcontractors, or you look at equipment manual, the manufacturer's information. Sometimes you take it from a commercial database, like I mentioned. In the US, we use RS means, and in Europe, they use spans. Sometimes said, I get it from the internet. Well, how reliable, Mr. Google? Well, actually, Google will not tell you. Google will refer you to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10,000 references. Half of them, well, more than half of them are not reliable. When a contractor creates a database, full or partial, the numbers must correspond to certain assumptions. I'm talking about excavation, and I got 380 cubic meters in per day. Well, this 380 cubic meters under what condition, what type of soil, what level of moisture, what weather conditions, what type of labor, what type of equipment, all of these have to be documented. This allows accurate adjustment when using the numbers from the database for a job that is with different conditions. This is a screenshot from RS means. And if you like to try it, rsmeansonline.com will give you, they give you 1 month free subscription. My book, which was written with RS means, that this is the first edition, was in 1999. My book gives a code that gives the user a 1-year subscription, free subscription. Anyway, this is how it's telling you, you know, they put the productivity. Let me get rid of this here. In 2 numbers, daily output, this is 800 bank cubic yards for this machine that is 2¼ cubic yard capacity. And the labor hours means how many labor hours required to produce 1 unit, which is 1 cubic yard. And the way it's calculated, first of all, we look at the crew. The crew has 1 equipment operator, that's 8 hours a day, the full time, and then 0.5 of a laborer. That means 4 hours. We need the laborers only 4 hours a day, and then the equipment itself. So we have 12 hours of labor per day, 8 and 4. So we divide the 12 man hours by the production 800 cubic yards, and we get the 0.15 labor hours. And I'm not going to go over every calculation here, but this shows how we got the 76 cents per cubic yard for labor, 66 cents for equipment. If you add them together, it's $1.42. And if you add overhead and profit, it becomes 187. By the way, those are 2019 numbers. Then prices went up now. I checked it. I think this is like 88 and 78, something like that. All right. But I want you to look at the bottom 2 lines, the total duration, and I assume we have 10,000 cubic yard to excavate in this job. So we divide the total quantity by the production per day, or daily production, which is 800. And we can do this activity in 12.5 days. If you are the contractor, you either put 12 or 13. I would put 13 just in case. And then the total cost, including overhead and profit, the 10,000 cubic yards multiplied by $1.87 which is right here, and that's 18,700. All right. Productivity adjustment factors, I have many factors, but 18, 19, so I'll go through them very quickly. Weather conditions, temperature, humidity, wind, and so on. Sometimes when you are estimating far ahead a project that is going to take place next year or the year after, you go and look at the climate, and you need to understand the difference between climate and weather. Climate is the whole year. The climate of this country is such and such, and the weather is kind of temporary and it's instantaneous. Labor skill level, crew composition, and I will talk briefly about the crew after that, because there are two types of crews. Type and conditions of equipment and tools used. If you're using an old equipment, subtract a little bit from the production rate, because that equipment may break down and so on. Availability and readiness of materials, design complexity, location. Location, I mean here the country, which has to do with the culture and regulations. Learning curves. I hear some voices, but I would appreciate it if we can hold on for any comment or question until the end of the presentation. Learning curves, especially when there is a repetition, items that you have to do 1,000 of them or 100. Fatigue, low morale. Fatigue is not tiredness. Tiredness is a short thing that can go away with little rest. And management style and effectiveness. Typical work day and work week, how many hours per work per day and how many work days per week, and the number of breaks and so on. For example, in the US, when we calculate for equipment, the hour, usually I use 50 minutes per hour. That's typical, 45 to 50 minutes per hour. Quality assurance, quality control, communication system, communication protocol, multi-shift turnover. Again, I'll talk about it in a second. Soil conditions, terrain elevations. This is only if you are working on a higher elevation, whether it's, I'm talking about scaffolding, or the whole site is like 10,000 feet above the ground, where oxygen is not as abundant as it is somewhere else. I remember a few years ago, there was a soccer or football tournament in La Paz in Bolivia, and people complained that La Paz, the capital of Bolivia, is high, very high. And I know that firsthand because I've been to Peru, and I went to Cusco, where Machu Picchu mountain. Indeed, when you go there, you feel shortness of breath. All right, so number 17, safety and security requirements, job sites, logistics, conditions, and congestion, and any other conditions that may impact productivity. Why is it so important to be accurate on durations, knowing when and how long the crews are needed, so you can plan and procure the materials for them, calculate the cost of the activity and the project's cash flow, determining the dates of for a dependent and or succeeding activities, calculating the expected finish date for the project. All right. If you don't have accurate durations, you may have issues such as delayed crews, wasted money, shortage of materials, crews, they're not there when needed, possible problems with cash flow, disrupted plans, and chaos. So, Mr. Contractor, do not overpromise, and Mr. Owner, do not pressure the contractor in order to overpromise. The objective of the breakdown, in order to be accurate in the estimation of durations, the activity has to be simple, has to be manageable and controllable. So what does that mean? Before the project starts, it means you have confidence in the duration, And during the execution, you have confidence if you say, I'm 60% complete. How did you calculate the 60% complete? If it's a complex activity, it will have low accuracy. All right. So that will, if you have good grip on the activity, you will have confidence in the project completion date and in the contractor's progress payments and in other decisions impacting decision impacting information. When you have multi-stage activities, either the same could be performed by the same crew, but they are different in nature, or performed by different crews. And I'll give you two examples very quickly here. Wood framing, performed by the same crew, but they have different nature. And concrete. I wanted to mention concrete here. Reinforced concrete items. They are performed by different crews, building the formwork, rebar, and placing the concrete. Even though it's the same item, but they are different crews, I would definitely split them into activities. I will not combine the formwork and rebar and placement in one activity. All right. Use the KISS system. Keep it simple. This is framing. Yes, it's the same crew, but studs are different from blocking, different from joists, different from trusses, and so on. This is a concrete operation. All right. So we want to simplify, break it down, break the activity down whenever its portions are separated physically or by time, chronologically, or performed by another crew. This simplifies all the calculations, productivity, time, and money. Time, I mean the duration and the cost. Use smaller and homogeneous activities. Use finish to start relationship as much as possible. Avoid the start and minimize the number of flags. Do not use leads. Leads is a negative lag. And minimize the number of constraints. If I see a constraint that is, a schedule that has 40, 50 constraints, I know there is something wrong with it. This is for the breakdown. Break it down when you have low confidence in the duration. I'll explain that in this slide. Now you have at WBS work breakdown structure level 4, you have two activities. Flooring, floor covering, it takes 8 days, and wall paint takes 4 days. However, you have high confidence in the duration for the wall paint because it's homogeneous, it's the same, and you have lower confidence in the flooring, only 70%, because it's composed of different types of flooring. So what I would do at level 5, I would keep the wall paint as one activity, and I would break the floor cover into components that are, each one is homogeneous within. And then what happens is my confidence goes up. If I have an intermittent activities that are designed to be this way, I would break it down. This is electrical work. The electrician will come and do the rough in, and then 20 days later or a month later will come and do the finish. I will not accept it as one activity. I will definitely break it down into two activities. All right. Sometimes we have an activity called obtain permit, 90 days. And my question is, are you doing work every day during those 90 days? And you say, no, I'm just waiting. Okay, then break it down to 1 day, apply for a permit, all right? And then wait 89 days or 90 days, whatever. And then there is a milestone permit issued, all right? Do not show duration when there's no real work being done. Here's another example for logic and duration and simplification. I see two activities that are critical. Clear and grub the land and then do the excavation. The clear and grub is 9 days. Excavation is 8 days, so that summation is 17 days. Do you need really to finish clear and grub? And you say, no, I need to have a portion of clear and grub. Then the real relationship is start to start with a lag. So 3 days after you do a portion of the clear and grub, about 1/3, you can start excavation, right? You say, right. And we cut 6 days from the duration of the combination. And you're going to tell me, you just told me to simplify. You don't want start. Yes. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to split the clear and grub into 2 components. And the first component is 3 days, which is a predecessor for excavation. And the remainder of clear and grub is not even critical. All right. And I don't need start. I don't need any lags. Sometimes there is unplanned stoppage. You're doing an excavation and all of a sudden there is underground water. You have to stop several days until you pump all that water. You do dewatering. Here's the situation. The planned excavation 7 days. This what happened is that you stopped working for 6 days and then you resumed. So you don't want to show that. Well, you can show that. Solution number 1, you can show that as 13-day activity. I don't like it, but you can, if you do that, you have to put notes, activity notes, that we did not work days 4 through 9 because we were dewatering. Solution number 2, I think Primavera still allows you to neck your work. You know, this necking shows that we're not working there, but they are connected as one activity. And then my preferred way is break it down. Again, you have 3 activities here. Excavation is broken to 2 before and after the dewatering, and the dewatering is showing as an independent activity. You may have multiple crews or multiple shifts. Here's multiple crews, here's multiple shifts, or multiple crews and multiple shifts. You have to be careful about the productivity, the impact of this on the productivities. Issues to be considered: the coordination among the shifts and the crews, the turnover, the available space for work and safety. You don't want to have congestion. Available equipment and maintenance, supervision, administration, night lighting. Most likely, if you're working during the evening, you need night lights, security, all that, facilities for the workers. Productivity may not be the same for different shifts. So the day shifts may produce better than the night shift because they can see better, or sometimes the night shift may be better than the day shift because the weather is nicer. I don't know. You have to look at the and then the pay. Are you paying overtime? All right. The crews are basically 2 types. I have to speed up a little bit. Either labor dependent or equipment dependent. What does that mean? If I have a crew that doesn't use a major equipment, the crew is up to me. I can make it 2 men, 3 men, 4 men, whatever, workers. And in this case, adding a worker will not, will increase the production rate. But if I have a crew that is equipment dependent, such as excavation or concrete placement by a pump, my production rate is restricted to the production of the equipment. So adding a worker will not do me any good. Okay, let's not forget the accurate estimation of crew production is important for both the cost estimating and crew. Whoops, where did I go? Let me add the word cost here. All right. Look, guys, in the first equation that we use for the cost, the crew cost per day divided by crew production per day will give me the unit price. The numerator is constant, the denominator is variable, the production per day. For the duration, I divide the total quantity by the crew production per day. Again, the numerator is constant, while the numerator is constant, the denominator is variable, and there is the inverse relationship between the production on one side and unit price and duration on another side. A quick example here, a crew of 3 bricklayers and 2 helpers laid 1,200 bricks in 6 hours. What is the daily output and the man hours per 1,000 bricks? What is the duration and cost for laying 7,200 bricks? Repeat the same question with productivity declined by 25%. Assumption, work is uniform, so all the bricks take the same amount of effort. We work 8 hours a day, including breaks. Bricklayer is paid $36 an hour. The helper is paid $30 an hour. So the solution here, very quickly, since we produced 1,200 bricks in 6 hours, then my hourly production is 200 in average. My daily production, that 200 I multiplied by 8 hours a day, that's 1,600 bricks or 1.6 thousand bricks. Wait a minute. That's 100. That's 1.6. Yeah, I have a 0 error here. It should be 0.16. I'm sorry. Anyway, so the crew labor hours, we have 5 workers. We said 3 bricklayers and 2 helpers. Each will put out 8 hours a day. That's 40 man hours a day. Remember that man hours is not a measure of time. It's a measure of effort. Okay, the labor hours is 40 divided by 1.6. Let's go with the number 1.6. It's 25 man hours per 1,000 bricks. Cost, the daily cost for the crew is 1,344. The cost then for 1,000 bricks is 840. We divided the crew daily cost by the crew daily production. Total activity cost 6,048 for labor only. We're not counting the bricks and the mortar. Total activity duration, which is total quantity divided by 1.6. It's 4.5 days. When productivity goes down by 25%, my production rate goes down from 1.6 to 1.8. My man hours go up from 25 to 33. That means I need more man hours to produce 1,000 bricks. The cost goes up from 800 and something to 1,100. The cost of the activity goes up from 6,048 to 8,064, and the total duration goes up from 4.5 to 6 days. Now remember that productivity adjustment does not apply to materials, applies to labor and equipment. If you have, I'll skip this, but very quickly, if you have an activity with non-linear production, so you're doing excavation for a trench and part of the trench is sand, part of the trench is rocky, you don't combine them, split them into activities. Or if you're using Primavera P6, you can use the steps, the activity steps. Duration risk, there are several types of risk as far as the schedule is concerned. Some impact the whole schedule. There's something that happens, an accident, a strike threat, a natural disaster, COVID, for example, and then there is an impact with varying degrees. So if you have heavy rain, it will affect the outdoor activities a lot more than it affects the indoor activities. All right, and then there is a special group, one activity or a group of activities risk, such as delivery. If you have a materials for an activity or a group of activities that is delayed, it's going to impact those activities and, of course, their successors. How do I account for the risk? Is it within the activity or outside the activity, but within the project schedule, or both? All right. The duration of, you probably heard of the 3-point estimate, such as in PERT, P-E-R-T, the Program Evaluation Review Technique. But the reality is it's not practical. It's not. You're not going to go to the site and ask the foreman, oh, give me 3 durations for each activity. It's not. But for you, Mr. Scheduler, implement that uncertainty in the duration, and I'll show you what I mean by that. Okay, generally, the 3 estimates are the most likely duration. So we have excavation here. The most likely is 10 days. And if everything went wonderful, so the optimistic duration is 8 days. There isn't much that can happen, but 2 days out of 10 days, that's good. And then you have the pessimistic duration, a lot of things that can go wrong. And that's why you see the difference between pessimistic duration and most likely is much bigger than. So if we apply the equation here, that expected duration implements the impact of both the optimistic and pessimistic, would be the optimistic, where is my cursor? The optimistic plus 4 times the most likely, plus the pessimistic, all divided by 6. So we have 6 durations, and that means 11. So that 11, why the expected duration is bigger than the most likely? Because it makes allowance for this vast uncertainty here. So the time contingency, that's what I call it, management float or time contingency. I would rather not leave it within the activity. You know why? Because if, let's see here, if I give 11 or 12 days for excavation, I tell the crew, well, it's the most likely is 10, but I'm going to give you 12 just in case. You know what's going to happen? Even if nothing wrong happens, it will take them 12 days. They will slow the work until they will fill that whole 12 days. And then what? And then for next time, that would be their norm. So their norm will go down. So I'd rather leave it lean and then leave myself a little space here. Let me show you graphically. Here's the project. Okay, here's the calculated finish date without time contingency, without management float. All right. And this pink milestone is what I tell my subs and crews, this is my finish date. All right, let's say 180 days. But to the client, I promised the client it will take 210 days. There is a 30-day difference. I call it management float. And I use as a project manager this whenever we have something unexpected and something that does not allow me to get extension of time, I use out of that management float. So I will leave the activities lean with no fluff, and I would leave that to me. We did that. In fact, I remember I worked as a government employees here. We used that. So with that, I would conclude my presentation. I'll be here. I'll hang around for any question or comment. Let me see.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Saleh, for your very detailed technical presentations and activity durations. So may I call on if you have some questions, clarifications, so you can raise it to Dr. Saleh. You can type in our chat box or you can unmute yourself and ask the question directly. And by the way, for your certificate of attendance, I posted on our chat box to click the link and fill up the form in order for you to receive your certificate of attendance. So any questions? Okay. Think nobody. I think everybody understand. Okay.
I think there are in the chat
Let me
box. If you can
check
read
it.
it, please.
Let me check it.
Some of them are questions, some are.
Okay, not much. Not much. Okay. Okay. Yes, only let me about let us know about There's a question. Let us know about your courses on project controls.
Um,
One
i- i-
question also. Where to get your book, Doctor? Okay.
oh, okay. My books are available on many websites. The publisher is Wiley. It's
Okay.
one of the most prestigious publishers in the world in scientific books. But you can get it through Amazon. Um, and I remember Jarir bookstore with Jarir. I think it's in most Gulf countries used to carry my scheduling book. So I think it's available there. Um, but if you go to Google and search for my book, it will tell you where it's available in online. As far as courses, I don't, I don't organize courses, but I teach for those organizations that request me to do so. So if there is an organization that would like me to do a course, I will be happy to. They can send me an email. My email again. Let me share the screen again to, in case somebody who did not. This is my. These are my books. Make sure if you get them, the scheduling book is right now in the 4th edition, and the cost estimating is in the 5th edition. And we can talk about courses.
Oh,
Thank you, Mr. Abdullah. Uh, um, we've met on LinkedIn, and always a pleasure to see familiar names, Dr. Khalid Madallah and others I've known before.
Dr. Saleh, I have a question.
تفضل.
First of all, thank you very much for this very interesting presentation. And we always learn from you, mashallah. Do you have a suggestion how to measure productivity, especially when we have variation between the group and particularly different nationalities? Do you have a suggestion how to measure productivity?
It's interesting because people when people work, they don't like somebody who is staring at them at this all the time. If you take your car to the mechanic, and if you go to inside the mechanic shop and you're watching the mechanic do everything, he will get upset. He will tell you, get out of the mechanic shop and let me do my work. Okay, so you want to do observation, but in a subtle way that does not annoy them. And I was thinking the other day about using drones. If you can use drones from or fixed cameras, if the work, you can put fixed cameras and just watch. By watching this, you don't have to watch all the time, but from time to time, you can tell, first of all, if how hard, how serious the crew is working. You can tell if they are using the most efficient ways. Let's say they're going in a certain circle, and if they go in, for example, another way, it will be shorter for them. You can even plan the whole site in a better way. So I would definitely use cameras, and then I would sit down by myself, maybe in the evening with a cup of tea, and I watch, and I said, how can we improve this operation? You can use also the feedback of the crew leaders. What do you think? Give me your suggestions. And I'll tell you, there is a problem I found in the culture of many, I don't want to mention nationality, because what I'm going to tell you is not only one nationality, many nationalities. Many of the subordinates are very much intimidated when they talk to the boss. But if the boss give them the, I want you to speak freely. I want you to tell me, because what you're telling me, even if it's something negative, it's going to be used for the improvement of the work. So I would definitely look at the work from both feedback from the people and observations from cameras and drones, and analyze. I don't know if that answers your question directly, but that's a different issue from using adjustment factors.
Okay.
Because, and
Thank you.
allow me
Thank
one
you.
second, because of the shortness of time in this presentation, I didn't talk about incentives and the impact of overtime in the short run and long run, and the fatigue and all these things, because one thing we know for sure, that you don't want to exhaust your crews and have them work extended hours every day, every week, every month. Otherwise, this crew um, will will get fatigued, and their production rate will go down, and there will be more prone to do accidents or low quality work. So you want to get the optimum number of hours, let them rest, let them, enjoy their time. But if there is a crunch time, we have to finish this project within like 2-3 weeks, and that crunch time we have to work extra hours, that's fine. At least we see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's not a lifestyle that will go for months.